Salutations all, this is Juiciest Slice, here to hum with the gnats, sing with the tree frogs, and raid the city people's cooler with the raccoons and bears, as it's important to seek oneness with nature while deep into the woods, which is where we're traversing today, as we go to Deliverance Country, and I talk about a slasher film that was in production when Friday the 13th blew the door off the box office, and made such sojourns eminently bankable for the next decade. Jeff Lieberman's Mountain Man psycho thriller, Just Before Dawn. Thanks a lot for checking this out. I deeply appreciate it. So what do you get when you take some weekend warriors, put them out in the middle of nowhere, and subject them to violent backwoods folk? Around the turn of the millennium, you get the first in the long-lived Wrong Turn franchise. But if you look back to the tail end of 1981, the year that gave us MTV, you wouldn't know it today, but the M stood for music, AIDS appearing in the United States, and the arcade sensation Donkey Kong, you get the thoughtful and thought-provoking exercise in terror, Just Before Dawn.
Uh-huh. Well put. Devastating.
That might be stretching it, but
life is effort and I'll stop when I die!
If anything about this trips your fancy, please like, subscribe, and share. I'd appreciate that too.
Yes.
Brought to the screen by Jeff Lieberman, the original script, by Mark Arowitz, was based on a short story written by Jonas Middleton, but Lieberman did an extensive rewrite, dropping the majority of the original elements save for the basic plot and woods locale. Moreover, with the burgeoning slasher genre having recently been ignited, it was made clear it would be in his best interest to up the invention and goriness of the kills, though he restrained himself to a degree and kept it classier than your average gore fest. Starring the stellar Deborah Benson, as capricious, irrepressible Constance, aka Connie, our transcendent and spellbinding final woman. I've seen him all over the place in recent years, the durable Greg Henry.
Yes, it's okay, I'll steer him away from the poison ivy.
As Manly Man, at least by city standards, Warren. The son of a legend and a bit of a legend himself, Chris Lemon.
Save the lovin' for the moonlight and let's go!
As freewheeling wiseacre Jonathan. Vivacious to this day, Jamie Rose.
Wait, let's do it this way.
As hot to trot and graveyard chic Megan. The devastatingly debonair Ralph Seymour.
So you peed in your pants to play it safe, huh? I did not.
As lovable nerd Daniel. I love him in the Iger Sanction, the unmatched George Kennedy.
I'll be right back. Steve.
As hale and well-met park ranger, horseman, and green thumb Roy McLean. The next guy I remember from his turn in another early slasher, one with the freakiest of twists, which sadly was his last role.
It can't be. It can't be!
No insult, but he had an outstanding face for horror. Mike Kellen.
Lord, they have all deserted your old church, but I am bringing back the Holy Spirit!
As backwoods pilferer #1 Ty, the film's harbinger of doom. Not one with a very prolific career, but he appeared in Rat Boy, Charles Bartlett.
You got a beat on another 12-pointer, Uncle Ty?
As backwoods pilferer #2 and killer mountain man fodder, Vachel. Lovely Katie Powell. As sprightly minx Mary Cat Logan. What's there to say, Barbara Spence and Hap Osland.
Take it easy, man.
As Ma and Pa Logan. I could make a Ma and Pa Kettle joke, but that would be unfair to Ma and Pa Kettle. And the imposing beast of a man, John Hunsaker. As our mountain man killer wreaking havoc.
I don't care.
The film opens with hunters turned scavengers Ty and Vachel picking sacrilegiously through an abandoned church, deep in a mountainous region of the Oregon forest.
She don't mind me going hunting. I'm gonna bring her something back.
A pair of yokels who should probably know better than to transgress, evidenced by Ty's obvious paranoia, and are punished for their invasion, first with their truck blowing up because movies need inexplicable explosions, followed by Vachel's unspooling. The mountain man strips some souvenirs from the dead man and, why not, dons them like trophies.
Rachel?
Knowing Vachel's fate, Ty escapes with his life and does his best to get the hell out of the story. Probably the smartest decision. With their pickup blown up, he has to hotfoot it. Maybe not the steadiest on his feet. Our group of weekend warriors, on their way to a patch of isolated land inherited by Warren, appear in an RV. Must believe the wood's theirs to conquer since they've brought all the amenities of home into what's all but a primeval wilderness. Photog Daniel proves inquisitive concerning details of the area.
More Gemini. Wonder why there's so many twins around here. Maybe something in the water.
Cross-cutting suggests Ty might hop out in front of them, but not so fast. Instead, they hit what's obviously a very real deer.
What happened?
I hit a deer! We have to tell the cops you were driving.
What?
This is rum raisin!
Sorry, wrong clip.
Stop!
Oh, Jesus Christ, Warren, didn't you see the poor thing? No.
There we go. Well, Warren volunteers to check on the deer's status, but perhaps afraid he could be tasked with a mercy killing.
Why? Get a big rock? Or...
It's not an armadillo, asshole.
I thought that's what a man's supposed to say. It's not like I could have actually done it.
Proves too craven to find out for sure. And to save face has no trouble, I'll say, fibbing, since he definitely lacks the introspection to consider it lying.
That must have been a pretty tough little buck. Took right off.
You saw him run away?
As good as new.
Ranger Roy McLean may spend a little too much time alone in his plants.
In your case, my dear Lucille, your respiration is normal.
And his horse's company. When he warns the group off, as one might expect, he's summarily dismissed. In Warren's estimate, they got this whole going out in the wilds thing in hand, and he ignores his foreboding warning.
At least tell me where you're going, so that when you don't come back, I'll know how to fill out the report.
One thing he says will bear a lot of relevance.
That deed don't mean nothing.
In any event, they go on until Daniel signals they halt,
Saw somebody.
necessitating the whole group get out to investigate. Ty demonstrates that the best way to solicit help is to jump out and grab the closest woman.
Let go.
I would say he was lucky the men of the group weren't macho hotheads. They even tried to hear him out. A little addled from his experience and drunk to boot, he fails to convey the threat in any but the most nonsensical way.
Get it away from me.
Get what away from you?
Demons.
And without good enough reason, who would guess ambiguously trumpeting about demons wouldn't pass the sniff test? They aren't willing to take him down the mountain when they need to pitch camp before dark. In fear for his life, he pleads to be let in, even chases after them as they drive away. Megan commandeers the rearview mirror to apply makeup.
Hey, come on. I need that to dry.
Why? There's no traffic up here.
No people either. Who'd you expect to run into up there?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe some demons. I hear some of them are kind of cute.
So only Ty sees when the mountain man chooses to join them.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
What was that?
Suddenly freed of the demon stalking him, Ty is elated. And seemingly exits the story.
End of the line. We should be on the property, but we're going to have to hoof it from here.
They go even deeper to a truly beautiful sight. An early indication of her depth, when Connie has reservations about their so far careless regard for the perils present in nature, Warren plays the reassuring boyfriend.
Nothing out there but God's little creatures. More scared of you than you are of them.
I know.
There's truth to his words, but when the local fauna includes bears and large cats, dismissing the possibility of danger altogether is a little quixotic, and reveals Warren really doesn't grasp where they are, having maybe only been there with his father, a role model. I'm assuming more in line with what Warren considers himself to be, rather than the man he will prove to be.
Oh, poopsicles!
Later, while waiting for Warren and Jonathan to return from a trip to the RV, the others seem to get a visitor.
If you're scared, just say the word and I'll scream my friggin' head off.
The woods, especially at night, have a way of feeling eerie and upping the fear factor, and this film does a good job ramping up those qualities, so their fear is palpable. After a tense moment, the returning pair pops out for a startle. Am I wrong, or was there some shaking in the foreground ahead of them, and Warren and Jonathan came from behind? No matter. I'm sure it's not important. Anyhow, Connie's having none of it.
Go on, Con.
Wasn't funny.
And I'm guessing Warren isn't getting lucky.
You know you don't pull things like that out here, Warren. I don't understand you. I really don't.
Next morning, perhaps hoping to not have the sex life of a monk for the remainder of the trip, Warren attempts to make up with Connie, and she says something that hints that her real problem was her reaction, or lack thereof, to fear.
I was helpless.
So are Megan and Daniel.
No. Megan took the knife. She didn't just sit there.
Warren brushes off her concerns, making what I would say is a false equivalency.
It's just a game, baby.
Singing draws the group down into the gulch.
Hello down there.
I say, do you live around here?
Hey, don't run away. Hey, wait.
Hey!
And unable to make contact with the young lady,
Lawyer never said anything about people up here. Congratulations, your landlord.
carry on. Well, now they have to die. Next they cross an epic rope bridge.
You were walking on your garden hose in your front lawn. Don't look down, the falls will pull you right into them.
That was actually dangerous to cross because had someone actually fallen, death was all but guaranteed. So these wouldn't have been the smartest antics. Things go downhill from here.
You stick to the staircase method, I'll see you down here. Last one down is a... Oh!
Literally, as our group thinks it's reasonable to get down a hill via a leap of faith. I don't know if I've ever seen more credence lent to the rhetorical question, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you jump too? I wouldn't risk a broken bone so far from civilization, but not everyone is as paranoid as I am about dying like Finney in a separate piece.
Hates John Knowles.
Too.
In no way paying attention to their surroundings, Megan and Jonathan skinny dip and take the chance to do a little canoodling. This leads to one of the creepiest scenes ever. Megan playfully pushes Jonathan under and he doesn't resurface. She's beginning to get annoyed when hands she presumes belong to her boyfriend feel her up. Only for her to spy Jonathan crawling out on the shore. She freaks out good, but the whole event is just kind of brushed off.
That's not good enough.
Meanwhile, Ty reaches Ranger McLean and, go figure, after a night and day of running drunkenly down a mountain, is better able to articulate the dilemma.
Tall. Bigger than you. Built like that mountain up there.
A good man, McLean will go where the group told him they would be camping, even though he gave them fair warning, and it isn't fair to him to get embroiled in whatever trouble they're in. His principles push him on. Back at camp, perhaps as revenge for her fears and underwater groping being ignored, Megan stirs the pot by dancing with Daniel. And then persuades Warren to join too. Connie and Jonathan might be a little jealous, but Connie knows her power as a liberated woman and takes back her man with her own sensual moves. Applying her womanly wiles, Megan makes peace with Jonathan.
Stop it, Megan.
And gets him grooving too. They're all boogieing when someone makes it clear they take exception to all the sinful jocularity, depraved tomfoolery, and wicked frivolity. Of course, a family right out of the grapes of wrath materialize from the woods with a stern proclamation.
Get off this land. You got no business here, Scadoot. Raise the devil now.
Not about to start heeding warnings now. Of course they spend the night without immediate plans to pack up in the morning.
The raccoon stole some of my makeup.
Jonathan agrees to go in search of her makeup and winds up running into the real thief. Mary Cat is an interesting character. She's at once childlike.
No, wait a minute. You look very nice, really.
And a young lady on the cusp of womanhood, full of curiosity.
You went naked in the lake.
And a streak of defiance.
But I didn't tell Pa, because Pa don't like it.
What about you? Do you like it? No shit.
Not that she's necessarily emotionally and developmentally stunted from the restrictive environment in which she was raised, but the possibility is there, though she'll prove to have a good heart and a stronger moral compass than others in her environment. Jonathan evidently sees a curiosity and gets pulled into her grasp.
Nice to meet you.
Maybe he and Megan had an open-door policy. Both seem quick to flirt and whatnot. Taking the high road, Jonathan rebuffs her overtures.
No, we don't want to get Paul upset now, do we, huh? Mary Cat, we don't want to get Paul upset now, do we?
And the rejection prompts her to run off dejectedly.
Wait, I'm sorry, Mary Cat, okay? What the hell's anybody walking?
About to cross the rope bridge,
Hey, Mary Cat! Hi.
something deters Mary Cat.
Hey, where you going?
Misreading her trepidation, Jonathan thinks a demonstration is in order.
There's nothing to be afraid of. Here, watch.
His virtue and kindness aren't rewarded.
Hi, how you doing? You, live around this place?
Once the mountain man takes a swipe at him,
Oh! Jesus!
the sinister brute proceeds to cut the ropes. Sending Jonathan plummeting into the river. After laughing at him mockingly, the mountain man wanders out of sight, and Jonathan miraculously climbs almost to safety. Before being sent to his watery demise. Peculiar timing around all this. As for Jonathan, don't worry, his corpse will show up shortly to good effect. Unaware there's any reason for concern, Daniel's out taking some photos in and around the church and runs into Megan.
Oh, dear! The back door's open. Did I scare you?
No, I knew it was you all along.
She observes that it smells funny.
It's not funny. Let's go outside. I want to show you the graveyard.
Gee, I wonder why. Elsewhere, Connie and Warren hand-fish what looks like a trout out of the river. Full of eggs, they throw her back. And perhaps triggered by the sign of strong fertility, Connie's in what I'll describe as good spirits and an excitable mood. This is when, much to the detriment of their libidos, Jonathan's corpse makes its less than triumphant return. To his credit, Warren tries desperately to save his friend. But it's too late. Connie puts two and two together.
He was murdered, wasn't he?
Warren is in denial.
You know that. Probably fell off the rope bridge.
But Connie isn't logically impaired and points to evidence confirming her thesis.
It's a whistle. He's calling for help.
No dilly-dallying, she races to try to check up on and warn their other friends. I would say it's appropriate Warren is lagging behind her.
Hey, Connie, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hey.
As Connie has already accepted certain truths his stubborn mind refuses to wrap around.
Good.
An irony in the making, sexy, free-spirited lady that she is, Megan models for Daniel on a grave.
You see my glasses?
They spy a lurker.
Only Jonathan.
Megan sees an opportunity.
He wants to play games?
What?
Okay, let's play. That'll give us something to think about.
This is all predicated on Daniel having Mr. Magoo vision, so it's a good thing for the killer.
Can't see anything without my glasses.
Okay, wait.
Even a fly-off-the-handle jealous brother would be far preferable to who they encounter instead.
Jonathan, you asshole!
Megan makes a brave run for it. And locks herself in the church. This time around, she runs into Vachel's decaying remains. Poor timing. Were they to have noticed the source of the bad smell before, the danger would have been plain. Megan thinks she's safe because she can see the killer outside. But
I have a surprise for you!
that's when this film gets even weirder. And we learn our mountain man killer has the power to undergo binary fission. And split into separate entities. Okay, that's not true. There are two of them. A pair of demented twins with identical unibrows. And the one who stripped Vachel of life is locked in with her. Interesting fact, the term unibrow was first used in print in 1981. Back to the story, Megan finds herself in dire, unmitigating circumstances. I won't speculate out loud what might have happened to Megan, what horrific acts they visited upon her, but it's safe to assume ominously it was the worst and last day of her life. Connie and Warren make it back to camp.
Megan!
Whether Connie's right, and we know she is, the best assumption is that they are surrounded by great danger, incentivizing healthy paranoia, the kind that might even keep a city person alive in the deep woods. But Warren almost chastises her.
They're dead.
Stop that.
Perhaps remembering Ty's ramblings, Connie has other ideas.
Demons, Warren.
Hey, there are no demons. You hear me?
Proving how out of his depth he truly is.
Well, go find those old people. They'll help us.
I think it would stand to reason that the folks who warned them off maybe aren't the best option for seeking help. Yet with Warren in charge, that's what they do. Make a beeline for the home of these hostile folks. At this point, Connie's disillusionment with Warren hasn't quite reached critical mass. So as a loyal lady, and maybe suffering from shock, she humors his cockamamie idea.
Take it easy. Take it easy. Don't mean any harm.
Is it any surprise they're met by a rifle?
We don't mean any harm.
Our friend was killed.
We can't find the others.
Connie has an inquiry.
I want to know what you meant by raising the devil.
The interaction sort of suggests they have no influence,
You sure raise the devil around here.
only the power to try to chase people off.
Come on. Come on. Let's go.
After night falls, they sit by the fire, contemplative, sad, and fearful. Warren breaks the moratorium on chit-chat with a non sequitur.
Okay, even a Cub Scout would make it back by now.
Yeah, makes sense. Connie labors under no illusions.
They're dead, Warren.
Could you stop that?
Warren decides that since Jonathan had the keys to the RV, he should go recover them so when Daniel and Megan return, they can all get out of there.
Get the whistle, too. In case I get lost, you listen for it.
Able to find the keys, for good reason the whistle proves elusive. Connie scurries up a tree like a frightened house cat that mistakenly got out of the house. The mountain man has a machete and therefore a solution. And he shows there's some lumberjack in his blood when he topples the tree in short order. After getting information because Mary Cat has a conscience.
Ain't been up here.
I seen him. Down by the lake. I've seen him. He can't get in here.
Ranger McLean is in the right place at the right time to save Connie with some well-placed shots. After they extricate her from beneath a landslide of sweaty flesh, besides that she's understandably a little dazed, Connie seems no worse for wear. Ranger McLean reads the situation.
I guess that's what the old man was hiding.
And has an idea of what went wrong.
Keep breeding in the same family long enough, something's bound to snap.
Halfway to a deus ex machina, he knows not to tempt fate.
Once you get your things together and get in that fancy wagon and get down off this mountain.
But Warren wants to quibble.
You didn't do anything.
I didn't say that you did.
McLean has some choice words to shut him down.
But I told you not to come up here. You knew about this.
This isn't really a time for accusations.
No. No, I didn't. I knew about you, though.
The smack of a hard truth can be the hardest smack of all.
About our friends.
I'll send somebody up after their bodies.
They're not dead. They're not dead.
Denial has the power to make fools of us all, but Warren especially.
Pew, 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 pew.
Warren thinks they're getting out of there, but there's a deranged mountain man who feels otherwise. Out of the shattered pieces of her former self, something solidifies inside Connie.
Put on makeup.
You never know who you might run into up here.
Now composed, having pivoted and adjusted her whole life's philosophy to better match her ideal conception of herself, sort of a seismic pole shift of personality, she shucks victimhood entirely, embracing her inner warrior, and answering the call, so to speak, exploits the element of surprise to launch her attack. Bombarded by the beastly man's might, for a hot second things are up in the air. With size and brute force, the Devil Man is almost able to simply overpower her, but Connie has a couple of aces up her sleeve, grit and improvisation, and she pulls out one of the all-time great moves. Eureka! No duck-billing it, she goes full fist. It's as if she gets the order,
Go on, kill him!
and as Warren watches helplessly, accommodates the command mercilessly. Going elbow deep, really making him deep-throat it, every clenched digit down his gullet. Apparently when pressed, Connie will break every rule of decency. It's
Like one of those horrible acts against nature that are just seared into your brain like a hot brand.
and I love it. The whole thing is just awesome, and for my money, one of the more memorable slasher villain deaths. The devious mountain man choked out in the most literal sense. Boss Connie emerges victorious, the queen of the forest, and triumphantly withdraws her fist.
Plug 'em. Then unplug 'em.
Having overcome, she stands proudly. Mary Cat sprints in to view the aftermath and runs off. Warren goes to her despondently. And bows before her, weeping like a frightened and whimpering child. I have a feeling as long as they were together, she thereafter wore the proverbial pants in their relationship.
Oh, Lord.
So, what's just before dawn getting at in the heroine shoves her fist down the villain's throat until he stops kicking kinda way? Upon the initial release, Jim Davidson of the now defunct Pittsburgh Press wasn't kind, writing, "The only suspense in this appalling movie lies in anticipating the who and when of the next stabbing. In one way or another, no matter how you slice it, that's what a horror movie of the slasher variety is." So was this criticism of the film, or the entire subgenre, which was at the time handsomely lining a lot of pockets? Slashers became a full-on lottery, and even big boys in the business bought up the tickets. Furthermore, Mr. Davidson wrote, "Director Jeff Lieberman uses forest locations and a full set of dark filters that disguise the cheapness of the production. Not everybody's next job is coming from a studio chomping at the bit to shell out several $1,000,000 on spec. Sometimes it's about making do, and this is a film that manages to wring a lot of juice out of a budget that was more of a turnip than a bag of oranges. That's a good thing. In case you haven't noticed, I delight in this film, but then I'm a sucker for wild slashers set deep in the woods, and this is, in my opinion, one of the strongest examples on a multitude of levels. From artistic intent to shock value, to villains that are imposing, creepy, and off enough to be threatening in that you don't know exactly what they'll do, but it'll be really bad sort of way. Just Before Dawn might make an inadvertent point about the inherent need for firearms. I'm not a gun person in that I view guns only as tools, and not extensions of my manhood or machismo, but I recognize the usefulness and even need for guns in certain situations. The group is never depicted with any kind of firearm, which in and of itself was a sign they weren't really aware of the dangers so deep in the woods. I default to being on the side of animals, but being safe is being safe. Precautions can prevent tragedy, and if you were to come upon, say, a rabid animal, it would be in your and the animal's best interest to have a safer means of performing a mercy kill. What a nightmare that would be. Atticus Finch was lucky to be such a good marksman.
I haven't shot a gun in years.
Well, I'd feel mighty comfortable if you did now.
Lieberman took inspiration from Deliverance, and in the Backwoods family it shows like blood on a white sheet. They're the stereotypical hicks who are likely inbred, overly religious, undereducated, and backwards by every metric of that distinction. The thing is, that depiction is only representative of one end of the spectrum that makes up rural folk. I grew up in the country, so I know.
Country don't mean dumb.
There were people who had farms in the middle of nowhere and every day put on a clean suit, who owned massive collections of books they read voraciously, who were God-fearing but didn't make that anyone else's problem, who would gladly help anyone, no matter his or her color, creed, or sexuality. So the people in this film are of a kind, and show the dark side of hayseed bumpkins, but shouldn't be mistaken for broad representation. Even though Mary Cat was flirtatious and led Jonathan to his death, I don't believe it was her intention. Open to the greater world, she is on a dangerous cusp. As it were, she embodies a bridge between worlds, as she would like to embrace the trappings of the more evolved side of society, but is held back by circumstances and traditions. The murderous twins are throwbacks to an antiquated view of the world, one where brutishness and aggressiveness meant everything. Either or, the parents can't control their children, likely too ensconced in old ways to be elastic enough in their parenting to address their children's needs, beyond more scripture and repression, only fueling the problem. Sure, go knocking on enough doors asking to see the devil may eventually answer. But if loud music and dancing among 5 people rates as decadence on par with a Caligula orgy, your code of morality is maybe a little too strict and ultimately ridiculous.
I don't have time for these shenanigans.
When the answer is always,
Devil made you do it.
no real answers are ever forthcoming. With wayward religion as one of the film's undercurrents, is it any wonder that it all boils down to barbarism, of the unjustified and justified variety? Another commonality in this particular brand of flick, the difference from most is that it doesn't come down to giving up civility for the sake of self-defense, but the very capacity to rise to the occasion even if no moral quandary exists. They aren't opposed to self-protection, even at the cost of committing violence. The problem is that they start out mentally unequipped for such a confrontation, because it is just so outside their realm. Connie marveled that Megan was able to pick up the knife.
Alright, who is it? What do you want?
When she was too afraid. In the end, she was the only one able to find that extra something it takes to challenge all the demons, inside and out. But I digress, back to barbarism. In this case, from whence does it spring? That one's easy. The usual culprit, ignorance. It was the catalyst for everything, and on all sides of the die. Warren and crew are in their way ignorant because they can't conceive of a place so uncivilized. You have to account for isolated craziness rather than the societal insanity maybe more easily identified in more populated regions.
Whoa, what the hell?
Look out for that homeless guy!
Open the door! Open the door!
There isn't time! Just run!
Not that random violence is exclusive to any one place, but when it comes to the possibility of encountering people, they see no threat. They maybe should have taken Mary Cat's reticence to make contact as a bad sign, and realized Ranger McLean and Ty's warnings to clear out might bear more significance than initially assumed. Wouldn't that have been the smartest choice?
You certainly think so.
As I already stated, the rural family in this are of a kind, for the most part a bad kind, in part due to a deep streak of closed-mindedness to the outside world, while observing too much open-mindedness when it comes to unsavory activities. The underlying theme of incest explains but doesn't excuse the actions of the mountain men. They might be victims of recessive genes, but that doesn't grant them license to act with outrageous disregard for morality. Why is Mary Cat so afraid of them? As family, they aren't likely to kill her, so I think there's something else she's afraid of, something quite unwholesome. It's not like she doesn't have some sexual knowledge. The twins seem to show how repression and moralizing can contribute to intellectually stunted people not only becoming mean and violent, but sadistic and perverted. If other people merely coming around set them off, their problems were so pervasive it can only be concluded they too were victims of all kinds of abuse, pushing them toward a pretty rotten fate. One shot in the back, the other, well, you know what happened to him. Even under the best circumstances, tangible threat exists aplenty in the woods. Judging through the lens of an arrogant city person, though, real danger is unthinkable until it happens. Kind of a common trope in a lot of these films. Warren is a particularly bad offender. Under his leadership, the group was entirely unprepared. Ultimately a man who despairs in the face of his cowardice, he proves there are different forms of backwards. As in his way, he's as limited as the backwoods family. He underestimates their situation at every turn. He denies reality, makes unilateral decisions and a lot of assumptions. On the way, he can't conceive of any danger an amateur bushwhacker like him can't handle, but he doesn't even bring a rifle, nor does he understand there exist unwritten codes that go back generations. Who owns the land when there's no authority to enforce deeds anyway? The ones with the most firepower, the ones who are willing to go the furthest. That's who owns the land because...
that mountain can't read.
Warren seemed to think ownership meant something, and open hostility didn't, which got them into a world of hurt. Had they left after any one of the 3 warnings they were given, one literally at gunpoint, Jonathan, Megan, and Daniel would have not been killed. Since it's only at Warren's discretion and direction they stay, a lot of fault lies with him, which might be mirrored in his brokenness by film's end. If anyone deserves survivor's guilt, it's probably him. But out of Warren's failure, we get Connie's ascendance to boss bitch. Because in the end, Just Before Dawn is about one woman's personal revolution and rebellion against traditional gender roles, to find within the capacity to emerge against staggering odds, by also embracing her feminism, beauty, and inner strength, to muster her determination and survival instinct. Even if she begins a bit that way, by the final confrontation she's no wilting violet or damsel in distress. She's no Mary Sue either. Rather than come equipped, we watch her gain the tools she uses to win out in the end. Harnessing the will, gumption, and attack prowess of an Amazonian, Connie transforms unrepentantly from docile city lady with a penchant for camping, but no real aptitude for true survival, to savage outdoors woman able to take an even greater leap of faith than tumbling down the grassy hill. In a sense, she weaponized any sexualization of her against the aggressor trying to kill her. I feel it no coincidence she penetrates him to death with some of the most brutal fisting you're bound to see. Comparatively tiny, it's kind of like a house cat taking on a black bear. So certainly nowhere near as physically strong, and not by nature a killer, it would have been easy for her to lose out in a life and death struggle to such a behemoth. But in the heat of the moment she assessed the situation and used what she had at her disposal, namely her fist, erasing all the ways she was outmatched and at his mercy by snatching away his very breath. Evidently, she was able to make friends with every outcome, and in so doing prepared herself to kill or be killed, freeing her to act as boldly, brutally, and viciously as necessary. Fairer sex? Hardly. Would Warren have survived without her? Doubtful. Maybe if he fell in the river and it washed him to safety. It could be said with a faux man's man like Warren, she was cornered into rising to the level of great courage, because his denial was getting them nowhere, and she wanted to not only live, but to save him too. She could have run. If she hoofed it fast, she could have followed Ty's route right out of there. But no, she stood her ground for her and her man, and defended his claim. She not so much broke through the glass ceiling as the grove canopy. I would argue tantamount achievements. Despite that she's his girlfriend and he brought her there, ultimately it's not on Warren to specifically white knight for Connie, but in the interest of protecting himself, He should have been able to rally the courage to participate in preserving their lives. When it counted, he wasn't packing.
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
Though he could pretend to be the cocksure guy, when on the spot, he acted the eunuch, and not one of the cool eunuchs who pulled the strings of society behind the scenes. Just a dickless wonder, left a shell by fear and grief and impotence, shuddering at his valiant woman's heel. Maybe that isn't fair. Not everyone, when confronted with the prospect of death or even violence, finds a hero within. It kinda cost him big time. Unfortunately for Warren, he sort of tripped and fell into the forever box.
This time it's different.
With him proving not so reliable, a big talker, kind of a yutz, and a namby-pamby to boot, I imagine he permanently turned her off, and their romantic relationship took a nosedive soon after.
Oh, poopsicles!
Ah, who knows? Maybe she pitied him and a savior complex on her part kept them together.
Oh, Lord.
In the end, it was a camping trip that changed their lives forever because one proved less, and one proved more.
Yeah, we sure did.
But then maybe it wasn't really their fault, since when it comes to the wilds, way too many city and suburban people are ignorant of the perils. So maybe fault lies more with those in the know that communicated the danger badly. How hard would it have been to say, hey, there are some truly dangerous folks up there, you better be armed, and if you aren't, you better turn around now and come back packing. But nope, because then there wouldn't have been a movie. Then again, it's no one's job to hold the hands of adults. This film might also have something to say, beyond Warren's ineptitude, about how modern civilization neuters some, namely the so-called more evolved men, making it so when they need to rely on an inner stud, they find only a gelding. I'm not saying this is entirely bad. I'd much rather live in a world not run on machismo and one-upsmanship. But in some situations, it's detrimental to not have some survival instinct to summon, even a capacity to commit violence when faced with violence. This underlying emasculation of civilized man evidently had worsened over the course of a decade, since at the beginning of the 70s, Deliverance's main character Ed was able to overcome his civilized nature to kill the mountain man hunting his group, while in the early 80s Warren failed to pass a similar test of manhood. Is Just Before Dawn worthy of taking up an hour and a half of your life? I think so. It's a unique take on the forest slasher film with a pair of behemoth killers, enough style to make up for its shortcomings, and has my all-time favorite resolution.
Those were a tense couple days.
I've about reached the end of the rope, so I won't leave you dangling. Please share any refutations, opinions, accusations, japes, or other ideas in the comments below. And please join me next time, when I take a trail already traveled, and do the gratuitous little gore-fest The Toolbox Murders.
Told you, try to do it again.
The service of covering it in a way more befitting what's one of Stephen King's favorite horror films.
I apologize for nothing!
And remember, the nightmare has begun. Bye now!